Welcome to DIY guitar making at Eric Schaefer Guitars. It looks like in May of 2019 there may be a loosening of the CITES restrictions as they apply to musical instruments, and that is a very good thing. But before I get into that, I think it's important to understand the current CITES restrictions, so I created this 2018 CITES guide for luthiers and traveling musicians. And then in the next episode, I will cover the hopeful outlook for CITES in May of 2019. So here we go. In September of 2016, the CITES delegates agreed to place all rosewood under Appendix 2 protection effective January 2nd, 2017. Many musicians and builders alike are familiar with the fact that Brazilian rosewood, or Nigra dalbergia, is a protected species, and that there are many restrictions surrounding the sale and transportation of this overly exploited member of the rosewood family. Well, Brazilian rosewood is just one out of 8 dalbergias listed under one of the 3 appendices of CITES, and it's just one out of 304 members of the rosewood family. Now, since January 2nd of 2017, all 304 members of the rosewood family are listed under Appendix 2 of CITES. The new listing, by the way, also includes Babinga. Furthermore, there's an annotation to the list which expands the definition out to all parts and derivatives. So the list now covers not just raw wood, but finished goods such as musical instruments. So what is CITES? CITES is essentially an agreement between governments whose aim is to ensure that international trade in specimens of wild animals or plants does not threaten their survival. There are 3 appendices to CITES, with Appendix 1 being the most restrictive and Appendix 3 being the least restrictive. So here's what you need to know. Appendix 1 contains Brazilian rosewood, elephant ivory, and tortoiseshell. Appendix 2 contains all other rosewoods. First and foremost, none of this matters if your instrument, your guitar parts, your raw wood, or whatever it is that you're carrying or selling is not crossing international borders. It does not matter if it's Appendix 1 or Appendix 2. CITES only affects border crossings. For the musician who travels internationally with their instrument, you may be covered by the personal effects exemption, which states that personally owned or possessed specimens will be exempted as personal effects if both the countries of import and export implement the personal and household effects exemption for the species and the specimen at the time of import, export, or re-export was worn, carried, or included in personal baggage. So this means that you have to check with both the country that you're entering and the country that you're exiting to make sure that they allow the personal effects exemption. And this only applies to Appendix 2, so no Brazilian rosewood, elephant ivory, or tortoiseshell. And there's another exemption for non-commercial shipments up to 22 pounds, although there is debate over what 22 pounds actually means. Fish and Wildlife defines 22 pounds as 22 pounds of rosewood. This means that a traveling musician can ship an instrument ahead of themselves without a permit if the instrument contains less than 22 pounds of rosewood. This is good news. I can't imagine a guitar with more than 22 pounds of rosewood unless the case itself is made entirely out of rosewood as well. Apparently in Europe, however, some sources define 22 pounds as the whole shipment. Under that definition, you can easily imagine how a single instrument in its case can easily be outside of that exemption. So it's kind of a gray area. It may be easier and wiser to just get the musical instrument certificate, also known as a passport. I'll explain what that is. On the Fish and Wildlife website, there are 2 permit applications. One application for a one-time import/export, and one for frequent non-commercial cross-border movement of musical instruments for purposes including but not limited to personal use, performance, display, and competition, with the issuance of just one document. The latter is called the Musical Instrument Certificate. And it seems to me that they both take the same amount of time and cost the same amount of money in filing fees and whatnot. So it seems to make sense to get the Musical Instrument Certificate and not bother with the one-time import/export permit. That way you save yourself the hassle of potentially having to get another permit in the future. The musical instrument certificate lasts for 3 years. Okay, so now for luthiers and dealers. Okay, now we are talking about crossing borders for commercial purposes. That could mean shipping an instrument to a customer, or that could be carrying an instrument for display at a guitar show. That could be raw wood, that could be partially finished guitar parts, or that could be a completely finished guitar. These purposes are not covered by the personal effects exemption, the musical instrument certificate, or the 22 pounds shipment exemption. And whether you are selling or simply displaying at a show, you have to get permits. For Appendix 1, again, that's Brazilian rosewood, elephant ivory, and tortoiseshell, you need permits for every single border crossing. And yes, that is permits with an S, plural, because you need an import permit and an export permit for every border crossing. For Appendix 2, which again is all the other rosewoods, you just need the export permit for a border crossing. There are 2 options for commercial purposes: a permit for individual shipment and a permit for a master file. The master file costs $200 and it lists everything in your shop. So as a builder, you would catalog every little piece of rosewood in your shop, and every time you ship an instrument internationally, you would ship it with a photocopy of the master file. But any new rosewood obtained after you applied for the master file would not be covered under the master file, so you would need to apply for a new master file to account for that. New master files after the original, however, are only $100. Remember, we are still talking about international shipments. Domestic shipments will not require a permit. Keep in mind that the information on this video is based on my own research from Fish and Wildlife's website and from CITES.org, among a couple other sources. I am not an expert on international law, and I don't pretend to be. Any and all statements in this video are statements of opinion, not fact. This is not an official source on CITES. For official documentation, I would check out fws.gov or CITES.org. When dealing with international law, you should conduct your own research. This video is merely my opinion of what I believe to be true. Any resemblance that this has to the actual truth or fact is mere coincidence. Anyway, that's all I got for you now. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about what is potentially coming down the pipeline and how the outlook for May of 2019, as far as these CITES restrictions are concerned, is looking a lot better than what I just presented to you today. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video every Friday. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.